photography enthusiast but disorganized, decided his latest artistic endeavor would be a study in maximum mess. He wasn't aiming for a minimalist check. No, his goal was glorious, beautiful, overflowing agglomeration of ideas. It started innocently enough with a bowl of alphabet soup, the letters swimming in tepid broth, but soon spiraled into a full-blown fragile of textures and colors. He got in button and scraps of fabric or cereal box cutouts, even a few rolled socks, like a kitchen sink of disregarded delights that piled higher than the kitchen stove, and down onto the ground, leaking into registers, wafting a crude aroma all around the dingy old apartment. His workspace, once merely cluttered, was now a dynamic gallimaufry, an explosion of a grab bag that had been shaken with considerable zeal. The result wasn't a graceful collage nor a carefully considered assortment. Instead, it was more reminiscent of a crazy quilt gone wild, a visual gumbo so dense any semblance of order was hopelessly lost in the clutter. In essence, Fred had created not art, but a magnificent hash, a glorious box that was a glorious testament to his unique approach to creation. It was, in short, a total jam of a mess. Goopy Fred's dinner disaster. A feast of failures and flames the air in Fred's loft apartment. Normally a sanctuary of bizarre sculptures and questionable taxidermy, hung heavy with a different kind of, well, something. It wasn't the usual aroma of linseed oil and cinched plastic. Tonight, it was a pungent, vaguely unsettling melange that could only be described as unculinary chaos. The source, Fred blessed his perpetually bewildered heart, attempted to cook. Goopy Fred, as he was not affectionately and sometimes less so, known in the city's eccentric art scene. He had decided to host a dinner party, a noble gesture one might think. But when you know Fred, noble is rarely the adjective that springs to mind. His guests, 3 couples, old friends and fellow travelers in the land of the avant-garde, were about to discover the full extent of Fred's, let's call it, unconventional culinary approach. The invite had been for a meal as unique as our art, which in retrospect should have been a blaring klaxon warning sign, as the couples, Beatrice and Hugo, known for their collaborative performance art pieces involving live bees and naked honey, drenched interpretive dancers, Celeste and Jasper, sculptors who worked exclusively with reclaimed sewage pipes, and Delilah and Orion, whose film installations often featuring the disembodied voices of houseplants. Filed in, the scene was, well, it was something on the table. Instead of a beautifully laid spread sat a glistening monstrosity, a vicious multicolored mass that looked like a toddler's art project gone horribly wrong. It was a goop, a thick, bubbling and unsettling goop. Upon closer inspection, various ingredients could be identified. If you looked hard enough, you might see food. There were chunks of what appeared to be overcooked carrots, suspiciously vibrant green seaweed, maybe something vaguely resembling tofu, clearly used electronics parts, and disturbingly several intact and possibly uncooked peppercorns that seemed to stare back with a malevolent glint. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut with a rusty spoon. Beatrice, never one to miss words, broke it.
Fred!
She said, her voice dangerously low.
What? In the name of all that is unholy is this?
The floodgates opened. The carefully curated composure of this particular corner of the art world evaporated. The goop it seemed was the dam that had finally broken, unleashing years of pent-up frustration.
Remember that time you tried to make a car out of expired cheese?
Hugo boomed, his voice echoing off the high ceiling.
It's sank for weeks, Celeste!
Her eyes wide with a mixture of horror and amusement joined in.
And the performance art reread your grocery list backwards. That wasn't deep, Fred. It was just confusing.
Don't forget the sound sculpture you made out of squeaky rubber chickens.
Jasper chimed in, clenching his fist and putting on his coat.
My ears are still recovering.
Delilah, usually the most composed of the group, couldn't resist.
And the time you tried to paint my cat using beet juice, he looked like he belonged in a horror film.
and Orion, a man of few words, simply pointed at the goop with a trembling finger.
This
He said, his voice edged with disbelief.
is the culmination of all the Fredness in existence.
Fred, usually the purveyor of the bizarre, was now on the receiving end. He stood there, amidst the onslaught of well-deserved criticism, looking like a bewildered mushroom that had been left out in the rain. His eyes darted from one angry, laughing face to another, the goop on the table seeming to mock him with its gleeful, unsettling sparkle. Still bubbling in some places, the dinner party had morphed into a roasting session for the ages. It was a cathartic experience, a brutal yet ultimately loving testament to a friendship forged in the flames of the wonderfully weird. Although Fred would never let his superiority get in the way of his friendships with any of this cast of outcasts, he was led to believe that they were most likely lying and they may be jealous of his creativity. He knows deep down that Jasper got a chuckle out of the 10-foot wiener made of 6,000 squeaky rubber chickens. And while nobody touched the goop, and why would they? The evening, punctuated by uproarious laughter and a hefty dose of self-deprecating humor, was a resounding success. A little bit. Goopy Fred, forever the unintentional comedic genius, had inadvertently created a new masterpiece. A dinner party so disastrous it became legendary. And frankly, for these particular artists, that's probably the best outcome he could have hoped for. He knew that if he arranged another dinner get-together, they'd be back, ready to offer him another chance to create something. And maybe, just maybe, they'd take some home next time.